And this was in the 1970s, in my 30s, and I realized, okay, you know, if I want to be complete, I have to develop as much, and this is long before the term emotional intelligence was introduced in the culture, I need to develop as much emotional intelligence as I have intellectual intelligence. And so, you know, for nearly 40 years now, I've been actually working more at the heart piece than at the brain piece. So your question is a really valuable one. Thank you. Please.
What I'm going to say is probably going to sound stupid to just about everybody in the room, because I'm just beginning to get into this mindful meditation business and some of the Buddhistic traditions and trying to understand them. And what it seems to me is you can regard me as a newcomer to the scene, and what I'm going to try to say is my impression of what I see.
Mm-hmm.
What I see is a methodology, if you will, a technique, a way to get to a degree of personal satisfaction, happiness, call it what you will. It's individualistic. It involves the individual. When I went through engineering school, I went through the classes and the training in order to do something with it. I didn't go to engineering school to reach nirvana. I went there to learn how to do something with it. What I'm curious to know is, what do you think we can do with it?
Yes. Okay, and actually that's a really beautiful question. Amen, brother. We Western Buddhists tend to be apolitical, you know, tend to be very individualistic, and tend not to think socially or globally, and it is really important, you know. Basically, if you really look at it, the only mind that you can really train is this mind. Not that it's a self, but there's a mind here. So it's really important to train that mind. And actually, if you do awaken, you know, if you do liberate yourself to a certain degree, you will have an immense impact on the people around you. Mohandas Gandhi said that if just one person developed the deepest form of love, it could neutralize the hatred of millions. And he actually did it in 1947 in Calcutta. So one person, highly developed, can neutralize the hatred of millions. And we don't stop there. You know, it's just, and this is, you know, I've been a social activist since the Vietnam War, you know, so I've been arrested and all that stuff. And so I think all you need to do is to see if greed, aversion, and ignorance are the causes of our personal suffering, it doesn't take much clear analysis to see that all of our institutions are basically projections of our collective minds. So if you have lots of greed, aversion, and delusion in the world, you will get institutions that reflect greed, aversion, and delusion. If you get, because collectively that's what we manifest. If all of us were to really work at waking up, we would basically have minds that manifest the opposite. So instead of greed, it would be generosity. Instead of aversion, it would be loving kindness and compassion. Instead of ignorance, it would be wisdom. And we would manifest entirely different institutions. The institutions based on greed, aversion, and delusion would melt away by themselves. War would fall away by itself. If you eliminated fear, if you even reduced fear, people would not go to war. You know, yeah, please, go ahead.
The problem I have with what you're saying is I don't see the power to be able to do that. Granted, I'll grant you that if you get 6 of the 7 billion people on the planet to awaken, we'll certainly fix the other 1 billion that's left over. But what about now, where there's almost 7 billion of the other kind, and there's only about a few 100,000 of this kind?
Yeah, no, it's a fairly daunting task, but you got to start somewhere. You know, it's like if you're saying to me it's not worth doing it because it's too big.
No, I'm not saying.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is, do you see a mechanism that has power that influences other people,
Yeah.
aside from giving away your stuff because you're generous, or being a nice guy because you've been awakened? I'm talking about the ability to do something
Right.
with this.
Yeah.
With this
There,
philosophy.
there are people doing it. You know, it's essentially, we call it socially engaged spirituality, and there are lots of people doing it and manifesting in all kinds of different ways. So, for example, you know, the really important forests of Thailand are massively being cut down. And so there are monks going out and ordaining trees. And in that culture, you do not mess with a monk. They're ordaining trees and wrapping robes around them, you know, as a way of preventing. Now, it's just one step, but and there are people all over the world manifesting in wholesome ways from their understanding of loving kindness and wisdom. And yeah, and my sense of it is, I was born in 1945 in ultra-conservative New Hampshire. It's not the New Hampshire we have today. When I grew up, there were no modalities for spiritual development. You know, there were the 12-step programs, a little bit, you know, in the culture, but for the most part, it just wasn't available. Now, if you walk into any place in New Hampshire, there will be, you know, offerings for various kinds of meditation and yoga. There are so many now modalities for transforming our consciousness, and millions of people are turning to them. And so, just in terms of the presence in the culture of possibilities, is just unbelievable in my 67 years of life. You know, I just find that this culture has really changed in that way. Whether we will change soon enough, I don't know. I personally feel that this society is probably going to collapse, and the human population will probably collapse. You know, and so that's been after lots and lots of reading. And so what I'm scrambling to do actually is to help people to go through difficult changes, which I feel now myself are inevitable. So, you know, it's going to be really hard. We need to wake up. We really need to wake up. It's not something we can delay anymore. We really need to wake up. So I mean, your question is a really wonderful one. I think it's really important for us to transform our own minds and hearts, and then to influence others. And that's the reason I'm sitting here now. Otherwise, I'd be retired. You know, if I had my way, I would start children at the youngest age, teaching them